Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Canto 6, Chapter 2 entitled Ajamil Delivered by the Vishnu Dutas. Text 22. Vija Asad Vinimukto Vijashan Vinimukto Vi Prakritim Gita Gita Vi Prakritim Gita Vande Shirsha Vishnu Vande Shirasa Vishnu Kinkaram Dashanotasava Kinkaram Dashanosava Dvija Pashanpanemo Gata Vi Pakritam Gata Vavade Shirsha Vishnu Kinkaran Dashano Sava Dvija Pashanpane Mukto Yatabi Prakritim Gata Vavande Shirasa Vishnu Kinkaran Dashanotsava Yatavi Prakritim Gata Vavande Shirasa Vishnu Kinkaran Dashanotsava Vija Pashanpane Mukto Yatavi Prakritim Gata Vavande Shirasa Vishnu Kinkaram Dashanatsava Vijahashanpane Mukto Yatapi Prakritim Yata Vavande Shirasa Vishnu Kinkaram Dashanotsava Ready? Vijapashanpane Mukto Tamgata Bhavande Shirasa Vishnu Kinkaram Dashanotsava Vija The Brahmin Ajamil are shot from the noose Vinimukta being released Gatavi freed from fear Prakritam Gata came to his senses Vande offered his respectful obeisances Shirasa by bowing his head Vishnu of Lord Vishnu Kinkaran unto the substance Dashna Utsavaha very pleased by seeing them. Translation. Having been released from the nooses of Yamraj's servants, the Brahmin Ajamil, now free from fear, came to his senses and immediately obeisances to the Vishnu Dutas. By bowing his head at their lotus feet, he was extremely pleased by their presence, for he had seen them save his life from the hands of the servants of Yamaraj. So responsible. Having been released from the nooses of Yamaraj's servants, the Brahmin Ajamil, now free from fear, came to his senses and immediately offered obeisance to the Vishnu Dutas by bowing his head at their lotus feet. He was extremely pleased by their presence, for he had seen them save his life from the hands of the servants of Yamaraj. So, Vaishnavas are also Vishnu Dutas. They carry out the orders of Krishna. Lord Krishna is very eager for all the conditioned souls rotting in the material world to surrender to him, to be saved from material bondage in this life and punishment and hellish conditions after death. A Vaishnava therefore tries to bring conditioned souls to their senses. Those who are fortunate, like Arjuna, are saved by the Vishnu Dutas or Vaishnavas, and they return home back to Godhead. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Swayam Rupa Kadamam Swagadam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasai Gaura Bhattavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchikapatubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Paritanam Bhavaneyo Vaishnaveyo Namo Namaha. So having been released from the noose of Yamaraj's servants, Arjuna was free from fear. He came to his senses, he paid his obeisances, and he was extremely pleased because he saw what was going to happen, and then he saw that he'd been saved. So Prabhupada compares Vaishnavas to Vishnu Dutas because they do the same thing. So that's how fortunate we are to be in the association of Vaishnavas, because Vanchikalpa Turubhischa Kripasimudya, which have their full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. So the first quality of the Brahmin is forgiving, and it's not possible to be compassionate unless you're forgiving, because you can always find really good reasons not to be compassionate if you can't forgive people. If you hold those resentments long enough, then you'll end up with cancer. Cancer is caused by resentment. So for your own good, learn to forgive. Even if it's for nobody else's good, then even for yourself. For your own self-preservation, learn to be very forgiving and very compassionate. And then you're also on the road back out of the material world. No. Begins after the morning program, because after the morning program you get a chance now to practice. Time to do so. These are all the qualities you're going to practice now. So Krishna consciousness is shifting from how we feel to how we'd like to feel. We may not feel. It's like Srila Prabhupada was on the boat in the Jalaputa, and Shiva just kept on it. Where the other humans were there with intense compassion to help what conditions also, and also to fulfill the instruction of the spiritual master. So we have to override our feelings with Krishna conscious feelings. I don't feel like being compassionate and forgiving, but that doesn't feel very Krishna conscious. So what would a Krishna conscious way to feel? Okay. Practice. And even though we don't feel humble by bowing down, it helps us to start feeling humble. It helps us to start remembering our not insignificant. The Vaishnavas are also called Vishnu. I have the orders of Krishna. And Krishna is very eager for all the different souls, for all the conditioned souls, bottom, although if you ever do something, what's everybody doing? Just running around, looking like that. Because of wishing this way, and because of wishing this way, why don't they all just meet in the middle? One isn't going to do anything. And you can say to them, hey guys, what are you all doing? Of course, most of them would say, I don't really know, but then you could say, well, I'll tell you what you're doing, you're rotting in the material world. Because everyone is in a state of decomposition. You know, if you actually look at the dust under a microscope, dust is all little bits of skin that come off and floating around. So we're all decomposing and leaving layers of dust as we go. We're all rotting to one degree or another. Some have managed to slow the rotting process down a little bit, but everyone has to rot. And Prabhupada said also that the body is flapping. It's like when you see a flag, the flag's flapping. As soon as the wind stops, the body is flapping because of the influence of the soul. As soon as the soul leaves, this goes totally to dust. Dust to dust. So there we go. Everyone's rotting. Because people are rotting, that means it don't smell too good. That's why the fragrance industry is very big, because everyone is smelling, and so and you have a material body, and that's full of smelly things. And there's 8 orifices in the body. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 2. So you can work out where they are. And out of them is constantly excreting 5 substances. Ping below the question said, who would a fool like me would think that she could find pleasure and love in this contraption? She referred to the body as a contraption. A rotting contraption. Anyway, here we are inside the body, and it feels like we are the body. We go like that, the arm moves, and we go like that, the eyes move. You can taste things and smell things. So it takes a little bit of practice to become aware that we're not the body. We're just in the body. We're not the body. The body is not. And then Prabhupada uses another word which is very interesting, pangs. I looked up pangs, and pangs is a sharp pain, a pang, like being poked all the time by a sharp stick. So you're in a rotting body that's being poked all the time by a sharp stick. And then after all, as if that wasn't bad enough, after you've gone through that for 70 years, 80 years, maybe 90 or 100 if you're lucky, then you can go through the hellish conditions after death. On the bright side, when you become a devotee, when you take a Krishna consciousness, then just like Anjali, you're saved from you're saved from, although the body is rotting and there are the pangs, and there is normally a hellish condition after death, a devotee is saved from all these things. A Vaishnava therefore tries to bring conditioned souls to their senses. So when you are relieved of the illusory energy, then you naturally want to help other people because you see that they're suffering for no reason. It's like if you have a child and the child is crying because he's having a nightmare about a tiger, then the immediate solution is that you wake the child and allay the child's fears. As soon as the child wakes up and sees there's no tiger. So the material world is a dreaming condition, and all the fears that are there. In fact, it says Arjuna became free from fear. So once Krishna or Krishna's servants appear, Surya Sama Maya Haya Andhakara, Krishna is like sunlight, Krishna Surya Sara Maya Haya Andhakara, Yahan Krishna Taha Maya Andhakara. Krishna is like sunlight, Maya is like darkness. So if you're in Maya, then you're in fear, and if you're in Krishna, then there's no fear. So if you have a fearometer on you, You can measure how much you're in Krishna consciousness by how high you are on the scale of the fear-ometer. Would you like the fear-ometer? Like we've got these watches, right? You take how many steps you do, and they can tell you how much fear you're feeling. Vaishnava therefore tries to bring, so the Vaishnava relieved of that fear, immediately wants to help others do the same. We don't hear of Ajamil doing that, but that's the natural symptom of someone that becomes free from a suffering condition. He sees others suffering and he wants to help them as well. And also another interesting thing is when you're suffering the same as everybody else, and it doesn't really look like anyone's suffering, it just looks like everyone's the same as you. But when you become relieved of the suffering, and you're no longer experiencing that fear and that doubt about your existence and the meaning of your life, when you're relieved of all that anxiety, and then you hear other people that are suffering from it, then naturally there's compassion in you, because you're no longer experiencing what they are. So therefore he tries to bring conditioned souls to their senses. Those who are fortunate, like Ajamil, are saved by the Vishnu Dutas or Vaishnavas, and thus they return back home, back to Godhead. There's a conversation Srila Prabhupada having with Alan Ginsberg, and the devotees are hiding in the room next door, and there's a cupboard, and they've got the music against the wall, and they're listening to Srila Prabhupada speaking. So Alan Ginsberg saying to Srila Prabhupada, what's going to happen in the future with Kali Yuga, and Prabhupada saying it's going to be very bad. Toward the end of Kali Yuga, it's going to be really bad. And so Alan Ginsberg says, why don't your disciples, Srila Prabhupada? Srila Prabhupada says, my disciples, they will not be back to Godhead by that time. And all the disciples in the room go, so just like Ajamil, then we also have that same opportunity. And once you begin the process of Krishna consciousness, it explains in the Nectar of Instruction, then forcibly one is dragged to success. So even if you try and forget everything now, you go to the National Health and ask them for a Paramatma amputation, and they take the Paramatma out of your heart, so you're not getting bugged anymore by this voice that's saying, you know devotion stuff is the right thing to do, come on, stop messing about with it. Because once you know, then you can only pretend to be a materialist after that. So they return back home, back to Godhead. So that's nice, isn't it? Back home, to go back home. And you can imagine for a traveller who's forgotten where his home is, or he's even away from home and he's trying to make some place his home, and someone comes along and says, what are you doing living in this tent? Do you not know where you normally come from? And you say, oh no, I thought I was always in this tent. He said, are you kidding? Look at this. And he shows him a picture of a palace with beautiful gardens. And as he sees it, he remembers, that's my home. So then he's relieved and he's very happy because he's on his way back now. Any questions or comments? Yes, it's used for you. Oh yeah, it's not so good, no? Oh yeah, come on. Haribo. Put it on the bottom bit. Microphone's not so it needs to be like that, right? Is that good? Oh, you got a question as well? Okay. But everyone, no one can deny you're rotting. Even if you get frozen in the fridge, sooner or later there was a power cut. Before he died, he actually frozen to death. He was frozen to death before he died. There was a power cut, and the fridge he was in, he saw it down. So you can't avoid rotting, even if you live into the fridge, sooner or later. And so really the problem is people are in illusion. Well, that's the whole point, you see, is that they are in illusion. And because they're in illusion, then you can't reason with somebody in illusion. There has to be a change, first of all, in consciousness. So that's why Srimad Prabhupada said, okay, let them do whatever they're doing, but just bring in Hare Krishna mantra. And once the mantra comes in and purifies them, then they'll be able to understand, you see. Otherwise, it's very confrontational. This is the truth. You're nonsense. You're rotting. Well, I don't feel like I'm rotting. I'm having a great time. I was with a devotee one time actually in London, and we were doing books. And he said, excuse me, sir, take this book. It will relieve you of your suffering. And the man said, I'm not suffering. In fact, I'm having a great time. Got a lovely wife, 2 kids, great job, massive car. I'm having a ball. No problem. And he goes, excuse me, honey, I'm a little bit new at this. And he turned around and said to me, so that's why book distribution is good actually, because it helps you go back into people. What would you say when people say that they are you? When they say they, what would you say to somebody who said, well, I'm perfect, I don't feel like I'm rotting. I've just sprayed myself with this really good perfume. And smell great, and everything's fine, Well, that's not very compassionate on him, isn't it? How are you going to relieve him of his illusion? Yeah. Yeah, to some extent, you can't expect an immediate conversion. And you have to be respectful of the person as well, because out of false ego, if he's challenged, then even if he's proven wrong, it's difficult for him to admit that he's wrong. So be careful. Put some pressure and put up an explanation that you can coax them along for them to come to that realization themselves. Because people aren't going to want to take up spiritual life until they realize material life is miserable. And that's the majority of people who become devotees, those in distress. But then Krishna says those that come into the truth are the most dear to me. So what he's indirectly saying is, you may have come to me in distress, but you need to now achieve the knowledge, acquire the knowledge, so you can continue looking for the truth. So you have to shift from just being in distress. Because if the only reason for taking up spiritual life is because you're in distress, then after a while of getting up early in the morning, having a shower, doing some service, and eating nice food, and being with spiritually minded people, after some time your distress will go away. So then you think, great, that's my distress finished. Okay, let's get back out there and try that one again. And then you'll get smashed again, and then you come back. So you have to kind of upgrade from your initial reasons for taking the spiritual life and just being eternally fatigued. You have to shift into actually some understanding, some knowledge. You should be reading the books like crazy and assimilating the information so that we don't slip back into the imprinting of this energy. And it's a long process, and people have to start somewhere. So for a lot of people, just touching the book, just hearing Krishna, just taking some prasad, and that's all they'll do this lifetime. And they'll take off from 1% in the next lifetime, and gradually build up. But Rupa Goswami does say, if you like reading transcendental literature, and it's a very strong indication that you've been there in the past, And if you also have a feeling that devotional service is something that you didn't finish, you're going back now to some unfinished work, you get that kind of feeling, you know, I need to take up from where I left off. You know? But it's not that when you become a devotee that you immediately take up from where you left off. It may take a few years, because you'll have to work off the bad association you had in the stage in between where the devotional service was interrupted. You may have gone to a school in Scotland now. It's going to take you 10 years just to get free from that trauma, and then you can start thinking, okay, now where was I again? Yeah, that's right. Devotional service.
How are we supposed to see it? Because it's not like there's, but especially maybe in the West, it's not like there's hundreds of devotees. You know, maybe there's a slight change in consciousness, but it's not very clear. So, if this is the plan, how do you sort of?
Yeah, if you want to see what's really going on, then you have to work on your own consciousness. It's like we're all looking now from some high vantage point, and we've all got really, really smelly telescopes we haven't used for years, you know. And Johnny pulls his out, and he's going, "I don't know what you're talking about. What did you say? You can see an alpaca on a hill. I can't see it." And someone else has got his telescope and he's saying, "No, I can see like a kind of brown thing with a long neck. That could be an alpaca. I'm not sure though." And then someone says, "Why don't you try wiping the lens?" So we wipe the lens and, "Oh, yeah, okay." So how are you going to see what's going on unless you have apparatus that's purified? You know, to see what's taking place. You know, our perception of what's going on is heavily compromised by the modes of nature, and just getting out of the mode of ignorance into the mode of passion, and then eventually into the mode of goodness. And even in the mode of goodness, we're only seeing things slightly in the right way. Even then, it's like, but then from the mode of goodness, then like Haridas Thakur, when the prostitute tried to entice him, and eventually she surrendered and she says, "Oh, please forgive me, you know, can I be your disciple?" Haridas Thakur said, "I already knew Ramachandra Khan was going to send you. He's just a fool." And he said, "I was going to go a few days ago. I was going to clear off. Okay, I don't mind. I'll just go. But because I knew that you were going to be coming, I stayed to purify you." So that's when you really know what's going on. So we're trying to achieve that. And Srila Prabhupada said, "Look, do this, do this, do this, and everything will take place." Lord Chaitanya said it's already going to be a success. Krishna shows Arjuna everyone's been annihilated already. But then he says, if you want to go, that's fine. It's up to you. If you want to stay, everyone. If you stay, this is what will happen. If you go, this is what will happen anyway. So the more we work on our own consciousness, the more aware we'll become, and the more conscious we'll become of what's going on and how powerful what's going on is, you know. When we do Rath Yatra in London, how many people see that? And what kind of effect? You know, for most of us, most devotees, what really compelled them to take up devotional service was seeing the joy and the serenity of the devotees in Harinam, and they thought, that's it, that's what I want. So how many people on Rath Yatra see that? And you got all those buildings with millions of windows in it, and they hear the noise and say, "Oh, look at this," and they all come over, and then that's what I want. How many does that happen to? And that's then all starting a devotional service. And devotees take up devotional service and then they fall away. but they don't disappear off the face of the earth. They come back again, and then they resume from where they left off. So over a period of time, there's a build-up. But definitely, the more we become aware of how potent the Holy Name is, the more we'll be inspired and enthusiastic about what an effect that sound vibration must be having on people's consciousness. To take up devotional service, there has to be a certain amount of purification there already. That's why the Goswami says it means you used to practice some devotional service in the past life. So the initial devotional service may be very, very fractional, and then they have that glimpse, that epiphany, and then they get embroiled again. They go through everything. It's kind of percolating there in the back, and then they take breath again, and when they see it the next time, they're like, this is definitely the same expression about this, and they take it a little bit further, and a little bit further. And Bahunam Janamanamante, Krishna says, after many births and death, finally Vasudeva Sabhamati, finally one realizes. So we're at the stage now where we're trying to realize that Vasudeva is everything. Everything is Krishna. And if you don't see it as Krishna, then that's the reflection that appears to be in darkness. Anything that you see separate from Krishna is just his reflection, and it appears to be in darkness. So if you see the reflection of something and then you illuminate it, then you see, oh, that's Krishna's reflection, there's Krishna, and that's his reflection in the material energy. But when you don't see Krishna, you just see the reflection, and it appears to be covered in darkness, which means, oh, it looks like it's separate from Krishna. So Vasudeva Sabhamati is the person after many births and deaths that can suddenly make the connection. Oh, that's Krishna's energy. And everything reminds him of Krishna. Nothing causes him to forget Krishna. So to come to that stage, you can see the process, so that we can do it one night. So we can pass the final revolution. If you give up, if you're practicing spiritual life and you give up, and then you think, no, I won't give up, then you just saved yourself a lifetime. So you could see some devotees, and they're the combination of many lifetimes in the one lifetime, because they didn't give up, they just kept going. They didn't give up again, they just kept going, and they kept going, so it was one lifetime, another lifetime. So rather than have to come back after lifetime to build up, they just built up in the one lifetime, which is faster, and there's less suffering, and it's more kind of dynamic as well, because when people see somebody change, dramatically change, really, it gives them strong faith. If you don't do it properly, then, and the latest talk actually by Mahatma is called, I've been chanting for years, why am I still a mess? And he's saying, well, have you been chanting for years? Have you just been making a funny noise for 2 hours in the morning? That's it, 60. That's going to be something a bit more interesting. Are you actually chanting? If you're actually chanting, then you'll make rapid advancement. You'll become free from anarchies, free from fear. And then for other people to see that, like, wow, this is really dynamic. If you actually start chanting, you really start going places. Go on, say it. I can see it in your eyes. Yeah, there's a nice, there was a devotee who went up to Satsvarup Maharaj and he said, Maharaj, you're so humble, but I'm really proud. I get really discouraged sometimes because I'm so far from off when it comes to being humble. And so Maharaj said to him, well, I was always like this anyway, before I became a devotee. And so now I'm just trying to use what I've got in Krishna's service. So you have a particular nature, and it may be that before you were a devotee, you weren't a very compassionate person anyway. So this is your deck of cards. This is what you've been given. So you use it in the service of Krishna, and over a period of time, it will develop into something else. And we're also practicing Krishna consciousness as a practice, and it means practicing, like being clean, for instance. You have to practice. Once you practice being clean for a while, then you don't want to be dirty again. Once you practice rising early, you feel like when you sleep, it's a waste of time. So you practice, and then you can develop. Because sometimes the qualities are there, but they're covered over. There's a book called Emotional Intelligence, and this lady was married to a man for 17 years. And he gave her up, and she said to her friend 2 months later, she said, "Yeah, he left me for the secretary." And she said, "But it's okay. I'm just carrying on. I'm not bothered actually. I'm really surprised, but I've not even shed a tear." And then as soon as she said that, the floodgates opened, and she was crying her eyes out. And so what had happened was, because she did not want to admit how much he'd hurt her by doing that, she preferred instead to push those emotions down. Not address them, but they were there. And then as soon as she took her guard down, all these emotions came up. And so in the same way, we have compassion and a longing to be kind and loving, and for one reason or another, we're pushed, we're suppressed down. And Krishna consciousness is connecting us with that, and then bringing all those emotions out, so that we can express them. And sometimes you may have a very kind of a very harsh picture of yourself, and the devotees may not see you like that, and Krishna will certainly not see you like that. Krishna's vision of you is much different, because he knows that you're doing this because you're under the influence right now. A particular energy is hampering your ability to behave in a way that you would normally. And Krishna can see that, he knows actually what your potential is. And after all, he did create you, so he didn't create anyone horrible, did he? So he just made a couple of souls that were really just really kind. I don't know how it went out. I took my mind off creating, so we came out of it. Everyone's humble and everyone's perfect. So we've been heavily conditioned in particular ways. It will take time to purify that. And also, some good qualities go, and some good qualities come, and some bad qualities go, and there's sometimes a different rate at which one happens. It's not that all the bad qualities go simultaneously as the good qualities come. Sometimes no good qualities come, but the bad qualities go, and sometimes really good qualities come. You still got all the bad ones as well. So, and that can be a little bit confusing, because you're thinking, wow, I thought I was really getting places. I've just done the same thing that and so it's good sometimes if you have a devotee friend that you can open your heart to, and he says, "No, it's okay, it's not that bad, Oh, but I'm so offensive." No, it wasn't with ill intent. He maybe made a sarcastic remark, and the devotee didn't like it, he got a little bit upset, but he didn't want to harm him, really. So no offense, he's made a little mistake. Go back and say sorry about that, and give him a moment of this week. Everything will be fine. Any other questions? Having been released from the noose of Yama's servants, the Brahmin Ajamil, now free from fear, came to his senses and immediately offered obeisances to the Vishnu deities by bowing his head at their lotus feet. He was extremely pleased by their presence, for he had seen them save his life from the hands of the servants of Yamaraj. So you can imagine what he must have felt like, and how enthusiastic he was. I mean, he really, I don't know how much longer he lived. He was 88 when this took place, so he couldn't have lived more than 12 years in a short span of time. He was rendering a very high caliber of devotional service, so that at the end of his life he could go back to Godhead. So that's kind of encouraging as well, because you could think, oh, well, maybe I've taken up devotional service too late. It's people I should be. And but Ajamil was able, in just a few short years, just because he had that extreme. He was extremely grateful for being given an opportunity. So he told us the importance to hold on to that extreme gratitude. Because generally, for most of us, when we first come to devotional service, we do experience a lot of gratitude. We can feel ourselves becoming relieved of something in our lives, so we have to not forget that. One time, the way was asking Govinda Maharaj, how I have a terrible job trying to get asleep. And Govinda Maharaj says, well, just lie there, and instead of counting sheep, count the blessings. And there's so many of them there. So that's something that we should be doing all the time, counting our blessings. Although you could forget that you're in a very fortunate position, and what the potential is if you continue on practicing Krishna consciousness to reach to achieve the highest level of consciousness, which is pure loving devotion. And it's funny because, when you do anything with loving devotion, it's so nice, it's so satisfying when you do it. When you do it in a sloppy, haphazard way, you don't get any pleasure out of doing it. When you do something really, really nice, and then you come back and you see it, and you're like, wow, I did that. You feel really satisfied that you've done something. So the more devotion you can do things with, the more loving devotion, and the more satisfied. And it's a shame, isn't it, because Western society prides themselves on doing things faster. With you don't have to worry about trying to have loving devotion. You just get the jar, you take the lid off, you stick the spoon in, you throw the granules in the cup, and you pour some hot water, and there you've got a cup of instant coffee. And then the other guy up the road, he's prepared the soil, and he's grown his coffee beans, and he's been out every day, repotting them, and he picks them, and he keeps them, and the grinds a few up. Wow. So the more devotion you can do things with, the more satisfying you will be. And if everything was quick and easy, instant coffee, instant relationship, instant kids, instant divorce, everything's so instant, then it's so transitory, and you don't really get a chance to absorb in anything, and really get any satisfaction. It's only through loving devotion that our activities can become satisfying. And people think, well, forget the loving devotion, if you can just give me a couple of £1 million, that'll be fine. But money doesn't solve the problem, does it? Yeah. So we just skim over everything, isn't it? Skim over Our personal interactions with people, we skim over them. We even hide behind technology. Oh no, there's such and such coming. I'll pretend I'm on the phone. I'm doing this. And Prabhupada says that one of the things that causes the attachment is fear of personal identity. People don't want to be held accountable, and they don't want to have to look people in the eyes and converse with them. They're saying that children now are finding it harder and harder to maintain eye-to-eye contact. Because eye-to-eye contact is soul to soul, you see. People really being constant to it. You can't stand up like I'm doing. Just kind of float around and do things. Sometimes they go wrong, sometimes they go wrong. But personal identity means, why weren't you there at this time? You said you were going to do this. You hold people accountable. But then that's great, because now you're stimulated into actually being a person and not just an entity. It's kind of like people subconsciously thinking, well, I don't really exist in one sense, because I'm just chemicals bumping around. So, I don't really have to worry about anything, but just kind of bum away from life and then cease to exist. That's it. That's all. Being a person is a problem. But what is that Saraswati Thakur said that we could bring one of his disciples to the mode of passion, we would consider this movement a success. So sometimes our devotee may try to bypass the mode of passion and try and go from the mode of ignorance to the mode of goodness. You can see there is a big sometimes in Japanese and whereas if he puts an endeavour in, and then you maintain intense endeavour, you maintain it, sustain it over a long period of time, then he goes into the mode of goodness. And you're able to maintain it. The ability to maintain is the hardest thing. Passionate endeavour, intense activity, or inertia. I can't be bothered doing it. And then you get fired, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, but then can you maintain it to come into the mode of goodness? Because if you don't maintain it, you're just go from mode of ignorance to mode of passion. How can you go from mode of passion into the mode of goodness? So you can sustain a prolonged endeavour. So that's the challenge. Can you do that? Because you're trying to go through the stage of anartha, nivritti, which means there's unwanted things there, there's impurities there, there's disqualifications there, which means there's really good reasons for me to give up practicing Krishna consciousness. These are really good people. This is a brilliant reason why I should stop practicing Krishna consciousness, because this is a thing really that's unwanted, and it shouldn't be there, and it is there, and that's so bad, and therefore maybe I should just be pushed. No, keep pushing through, and then when 75 of those anarthas are removed, you reach a stage, like coming up a hill, and you reach a stage where the hill goes level, a plateau, and it's nishta. 75% of the anarthas are removed from that intense endeavour, and now you become steady. First of all, you're bodily steady, in the right place at the right time. Then you become vocally steady, in the right place at the right time, saying the right thing. And then you become mentally steady, in the right place at the right time, saying the right thing, and thinking the right thing. And then, okay, I'm steady, then you go down, and that's Ruchi, that's when there's no effort. Then you just get there, you just, you want to get up, you want to follow the principles, you want to do service, you want to surrender, you want to learn about Krishna, you want to learn slokas, you want to do everything, everything's like, so it takes time, and there has to be patience. And Rupa Goswami says you have to maintain confident enthusiasm. So if you're really enthusiastic for like 30 seconds, I'm ready for this. Then after 30 seconds, so nothing's happening. Yeah, okay. So you're going to have to be patient. Okay, great, you're being enthusiastic. And to be patient, you have to be confident. If you're not confident, then I'll tell you, I want to really do that. It's just the proper thing to be doing. So how are you going to achieve confidence and enthusiasm over a long period of time? That's what you need to do. You're going to get there. You want to reach that destination, then that's what it's going to take. Get out of the mode of ignorance and passion and into the mode of purpose. That's the territory that we're traversing right now. These are the steps we'll have to take to make meaning. And that's why it's good to, if you're conversant with the philosophy in the books, then you understand to some degree the terrain, and then you're able to navigate. And you will have to navigate. You can't just stay here. You've got to go from here to there. People are busy doing stuff, but they don't really know why they're doing it. I mean, I think the general illusion is, once you own your own house, you're fine. And then once they own their own house, they realize they're still in a rotten body. It's funny actually, because if you think about it, it's a bit like having a house and it's falling apart. And you think, well, let me build a bigger house. So you build a really massive house inside the house you've got. And this one's like really big stone walls and this and that, and that's for thousands of years. But the house inside the house was rotten. That's how body. So you're in a rotten body, a rotten house, trying to build a bigger body around it to make it feel secure. But no matter how shiny your car is, and no matter how thick the walls are on the house that you've paid for yourself with your blood and sweat, when the Yamaritas come to rip you out of the body, that body is still rotting. You do not impede the rate of rotting by having a shiny car or a massive house. So that's the illusion. People are thinking, well, as long as I get this stuff, it should be okay. Oops. It was a waste of time. I should have been focused on the rotten body problem. That is the big problem. I saw a man in Glasgow once from Australia, and he was 50 and he'd made a lot of money. And he said, I'm 50 now and I've just realised a lot of money isn't what I need to sell the problems. I'm just wasting a lot of time. I took advantage of the good. So don't wait till you're 50 or 60 and realize now you're in there. And when you're 50 or 60, you'll be so happy that you did. You can go back and see all your school friends and see the difference. And I guarantee you won't regret taking it. Yes, Kangarvindi K, Shri Prabhupada K, Gaur Premanande, Love you, Ki Jai.